Hello, and welcome to the Sunday sit down. I hope you cannot hear what I'm hearing out my window. Um, it's Sunday night and sounds like someone's cutting tiles. Anyway, I hope you had a good or decent week. Um, if you are watching this live, leave a message in the chat, say hello, let me know to say hi back. We are going to chat today about agency. And it feels like a particularly good topic to chat about today. I don't know about you, but I found this week politically and news cycle wise to be incredibly challenging. There's so much that's going on in the US at least, and actually not just here, but in the US and Iran, around the world. There's a lot of chaos going on. There's a lot of things that feel really important and really heavy that need a lot of attention. And sometimes when that happens for me, I find it challenging to really focus on my work. I don't know about you. So I started thinking about, when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about this week, what came up for me was agency. Because I think our sense of agency is such a critical key to how well we perform on a daily, weekly, and over longer period of time basis. Because when we don't feel like we have any control in what's going on, it's really easy to do one of two things: either grasp for more control and usually for too much control, or to just give up all of it and not do anything. And that's what I want to talk about today. Um, so sometimes things that can cause us to feel like we don't have a lot of agency are more personal, and sometimes they're things that are more global, like what's been going on this past week. One of the stories that I thought about when I was thinking about this was I know somebody who runs a business locally that imports all of their excuse me, all of their products from overseas: China, India, Korea, all overseas. And part of their um, appeal to their client base is that they are a lower price point for those products than a lot of their competitors are. So last year, I guess it was around this time, maybe it was closer to February last year, we had all of that tariff craziness get announced, right? It was the first time we heard about 30% tariffs with China. They went up, they went down, they were changing all the time. It was really hard to know what was going on. And I was talking to this friend and I said, your whole business is based on these imports. How are you doing? How are you going to handle this? What are you doing? And I really, really loved her response, because it was a great example of being able to discern between what I can control and what I can't control. And what she ended up doing was, instead of panicking, she did not buy a whole bunch more product than usual and panic and get as much as I can before the tariffs hit. She didn't do that because that wasn't a financially responsible move for her at the time. She didn't just up her prices for her customers immediately, partly because the tariffs hadn't gone into play yet, but also because they didn't know what was really going to happen with it. So what they did instead was they temporarily assessed a fee to every order that got placed with them. That was, I think it was like $15 or something. That was to help to offset the new tariffs. And they did that long enough to see what was going on, make an informed decision, and then to set new prices in a reasonable way that they felt would help them absorb the extra costs and not be too alarming to their customers. And so they waited until they had enough information, but they didn't wait indefinitely. They didn't panic. They really reassured their staff that their jobs were going to be okay. They took steps to protect their business. They were lucky to know what their profit the past year had been, and that they had some wiggle room if things were smaller. And she wasn't thrilled with it, but I thought she did a really great job of managing her business and making sure that they still ended up running in the, her goals. What she said was, my goal is break even this year. If I do anything better than that, I'm happy. I just want to break even and not lose anything this year. And they did better than breaking even. And I think I was really impressed with how she chose to handle that. And I think it's also a really great example of agency. She focused on what she could control. and didn't worry about what she couldn't. She focused on her response to the things in the world that were beyond her, and the things that she could really control, she managed to take care of as well. And I think what happens sometimes when when I think about agency, people can get confused sometimes between control and agency. Now, to me, control is outcome focused, and agency is more action focused. So another example, not a business example, but an easy example to understand. I used to explain this to my students when we were getting ready for competition. You cannot control whether or not you medal in a competition. You cannot control who else shows up. You cannot control what the judges are thinking. You can't control if they sneeze at the coolest moment and miss it, or they're distracted. You have no idea what's going on in their heads. You don't know what they're looking for. You only know what I am teaching you as your coach and as your instructor, right? You cannot control any of that. So going to a tournament with the goal of, I'm coming home with X number of medals, is outcome focused. And honestly, you can't guarantee that. If you define success by X number of medals and you miss that, you're going to look at your performance as a failure, even if you did better than you've ever done at a tournament before. So we used to teach our students of all ages, kids and adults, to focus on the actions. What is within your agency, right? How much did you practice? How well do you do under pressure? Let's get you prepared so that what you can control is you go in and you do your best. You go in and you know you have your stances are low enough. You have everything memorized. You know where your weapons are that you need, and you have everything mapped out and planned and practiced. And then you go and you do your best. And if your best is top 4, congratulations, you've got a medal. If your best is 5 and lower, you didn't get a medal, but congratulations, you went, you competed, you prepared, you did your best, you did everything you can control. And we focused on agency. And one of the things that fascinated me about this is I had a lot of parents who were either C-suite or entrepreneur business leaders who did not understand this concept of success. I had several parents who would tell me, I don't want my child to go to this tournament because I don't want them to get discouraged if they don't medal. And I would say, up until they were testing for black belt, I would say, fine, they don't have to go. They will have to go at least once to get their black belt. The longer they wait, the harder that will be. And what message are you giving your child when you say, A, what message are you giving your child when you say, I don't think you can be top 4? And B, what message are you giving your child when you say that is the only definition of success? And I would have to teach the parents everything I just taught you, as well as teaching the students everything I just said. And I always found it really fascinating how few people look to that definition look to internal control, an internal locus of control. And it becomes really, really important when you are in a hard time, whether it's a business hard time or a personal hard time. When something's going on that is beyond your control, of course, we're going to want to grasp for control. And there's 2 ways that we get protective about this for ourselves that I think are mistakes. Sometimes we do the right thing. We do the wrong thing for the right reason. Right? It's not the best thing. It's just the thing that works best at the time. Right? So one of these is over control, and the other is swinging the other side to shutting down or passivity. So over control is kind of the reaction of, I can't control the outcome, so I'm going to control everything else. You probably know or have met or have worked with maybe people who do this. In the workplace, this looks like micromanaging. In the workplace or in school, it looks like redoing work over and over until it's perfect. It might look like refusing to delegate. And what it really is going on in a lot of times is we control what we get in. We're controlling the inputs, the things that are happening that we can control, because the outputs feel uncertain. And we know working for someone or being someone who does this can be exhausting. And really, honestly, that pattern is kind of brittle and it doesn't necessarily work. On the other extreme, we can swing to shutdown or passivity. And this is if I'm completely honest, this is what I struggle with. It's I can't control the outcome, so why bother? This can look like procrastinating on decisions, avoiding hard conversations, waiting for certainty that won't come, right? This is for me, when this happens, it looks like, it looks like I don't know, I don't have enough clarity on this. I was actually really lucky because about 10 years ago, my coach said to me one day, when you're procrastinating, 9 out of 10 times, because she and I had worked together for over a decade. And about 10 years ago, she said to me, I've noticed that when you're procrastinating, you need more information. That was such a breakthrough for me because it gave me back my agency, right? My attitude was, I can't figure out how to do this. It's too big. I don't know how to chunk it down. I can't figure this out. So it doesn't matter that it's important. I'm just not going to do it. And I wouldn't own that I wasn't going to do it. So I would just procrastinate on it and keep showing up on my list. And eventually she said that to me, and she said, so what information is missing and how do you find it? And this is why I love having coaches. This is why I love being a coach, because those kinds of things can be such a breakthrough. But this is what I would call this passivity or shutdown, right? We're waiting for that certainty. We're avoiding things. And, it doesn't matter if you're over controlling or stopping. Both of these are a form of collapse. Neither one really is agency. They are responses to a lack of control that don't necessarily work. They're not necessarily the best thing. And in the moment, they might feel really protective and be the best that we can come up with. So what agency actually is, I think, is knowing what you're capable of, knowing what is in your control, knowing what isn't in your control, and then acting within those three boundaries, right? What am I capable of? What can I control? What can't I control? And, again, the things we can't control are the external things. Can't control the market conditions. You can't control your client decisions. You can't control how fast things are going to scale, team members' choices, the macro economy, the politics of the world. Sometimes you can't control things that have happened in your health or things that are happening in your family that are pulling you away from what you're doing. What you can control are your decisions, your standards, where you invest your energy, how you manage your time, what work you do or don't take on, how you lead. Those are all things we can control and that we do have agency about. So when I think about those two differences, one really good example is you can control your customer service, right? You can have a 24 or 36 hour turnaround. You can be sure that that if you're an employee, you're showing up on time, ready to go. If you're an employer, you can ensure that you are creating the best, healthiest environment for your staff. You can do all of those things, but you can't control the other person's response to that. So we had at my studio incredible standards and rules for customer service. We had so many scripts, and we trained so hard for people to know how to follow those scripts. And we documented things. We had charts that students and parents could look at to track their progress. And there was always someone who was still unhappy when their child did not get to take a test in the time frame that the parent thought they should take the test. Even if I could say, well, your child missed 4 of the last 12 weeks. So they only came 16 times, and we have a requirement that in 12 weeks you need to come, 18 or 20, whatever it was. Right? So they didn't meet the attendance requirement. Because they didn't meet the attendance requirement and never made up the lost classes, they didn't learn the material they needed to learn. Or they would come to class, well, they didn't miss any classes. That's true, they didn't. And they also didn't practice, which is fine. People get busy. But if you're too busy to practice, it's going to take you longer to get to your test, because if you don't know this, you're not progressing to the next thing. And if you haven't learned all your material, you're not going to test, right? So we had all of these guardrails in place. We could control what we did and how we interacted with everybody, but we had no control over the other side and how they would respond to it. And that's really an important distinction for us to keep in mind when we're looking at agency versus control, and how much agency do we have, especially in a time where it can feel like there's so much that is out of control. It is out of my hands. I live in California. I am very far away from Minnesota. I can't go stand out with those neighbors and protect them because they're not actually my neighbors. But I can amplify their voices on social media, and I can call my representatives and congresspeople. I could probably call theirs, but I don't know if anybody would care. I can send emails. I can raise awareness. I can do the things that I think need to be done to help support the people in Minnesota that are really struggling right now when it feels so heavy for me. So if I can keep track of what I can do and not focus on what's out of my control, and I have more confidence and I can get more done in my business and in my personal life. I think that's really important. And I think one of the things to keep in mind is if you're someone who has gone through something that was beyond your controller, you had a business failure, you filed for bankruptcy, you're dealing with burnout or recovering from burnout, you had a health crisis or some other personal crisis or a family member's crisis, something that happened in your life that was uncontrollable. You probably either learned to control a lot more than was originally yours to take care of, or you learned to play it safe, play it small. Whatever choice you made probably served you really well in that season, but now that you're coming out of that uncontrollable thing and you're facing new uncertainty. So maybe your business is growing and it's growing in ways you didn't expect. Maybe you're dealing with hiring for the first time or on a scale, either for the first time or on a scale you've never had to do before. Maybe you're looking at shifts in the market of your business, whatever this new uncertainty is. It's really, really easy for that old pattern that worked in that crisis to take over. And you may find yourself either grasping or retreating, and you may feel like you've maybe lost touch a little bit of what am I capable of? What can I actually control? Right? And I think it's so important to be able to identify those things and keep it different, right? So remembering that, like I just said, you can't control what your client's going to do. You can control the quality of your offer and you can control how good your follow-up is, but you cannot control the yes. You can control your volume so that enough no's lead to yes, but you can't force a yes. I used to tell the people that answered my phones, you can't say the right thing to the wrong person or the wrong thing to the right person, so just follow the script and do your best, and don't worry if you make a mistake, because you cannot control the person on the other side of that call. You can't control market timing, obviously, but you can control your positioning and you can control your preparation. You may not be able to control your team performance perfectly, but you can control your standards, your expectation, and how and when you give feedback, what kind of training you're giving to set your team up to be the best that they possibly can be. You can't control how fast your business grows, but you can control where you focus your energy and what you build, and that will definitely contribute to the speed your business grows. And you absolutely cannot control your competitor moves, but you can control your strategy and differentiation, right? I can't tell you I lost count of how many other martial arts studio programs ran in the same recreation center that I ran in. But I can tell you that over 20 years, there were two other than us that survived. Neither of them taught children. One of them was there before me, and one of them started maybe 5 years after me. And after 18 years, when I sold my studio, we were the only three still there. Every time somebody knew, the first time it happened, I freaked out. I was angry. I thought it was unfair. I talked to my coaches and they said, can't control it. What can you control? Let's just be the best, and it's not going to matter what else is there. I started going to those instructors, welcoming them to the rec center, telling them that if they ever had any questions about how to manage the way things ran, because it runs differently there than if it's your own brick and mortar, I offered to be helpful for them. I learned what they did, what their schedule was, so that we could refer people to them if they weren't a good fit for my program. And not a single one of those programs lasted for more than 9 months. Because I didn't focus on them, I focused on me and what I could control. So the shift that we need to make as we are moving out of this time of chaos and constriction and whatever has been going on to moving forward is remembering it's not about controlling outcomes. It's about controlling actions. So to act from agency instead of controlling an action, what you want to start with is asking, what's mine? Is this really mine to do? And if not, what is mine to do? And what am I capable of here? So we need to know the boundary between what's yours and what's not. And then within that boundary, act as powerfully as you can. So your 1 week your one idea for the week ahead, as we get close to 20 minutes and wrap up, I want you to notice this week, where are you collapsing? Whether it is grasping for control or retreating into passivity, well, I want you to notice. You don't have to judge it. You don't even have to change it. That's interesting. Approach it with curiosity. I seem to be collapsing here. I feel like I'm grasping for control here. I'm retreating into passivity. That's interesting. How does that serve me right now? Just notice it. Then also ask what's actually in my control here and what am I capable of? So that you're shifting your focus. What am I actually able to control? What am I capable of doing here in the time that I have? And then when you act from that knowing, not the outcome that you're looking for, but from knowing where you are right now and what's yours and what isn't. I hope you found this helpful. Thank you again for tuning in. I want to wish you a wonderful, wonderful week. If any of this resonated and you'd like to learn more about what I do, use the link below and I will give you an opportunity to connect with me one of two ways. You can do a really quick call, just 20-minute discovery call, ask me some questions, get to know me a little bit better. Or if you really want to dive in deeper, I have a free strategy session. It's a 1 hour session. 1 hour session that I promise will move the needle on some of the areas in your life. So have a fantastic week, and I hope I'll see you next time.